Week 11 DFS. We are going to get you guys all prepared for this slate, kicking things off, as always, with the Block Party show with JMToWin from 1 week season. We'll do a little macro overview, go position by position, get his favorite plays on the slate, and then wrap up with a lineup build. And then we'll segue right into Youdacao from Bully the Sims, or that's the name of the show, from Run the Sims, and we'll get his thoughts on the slate, favorite angles, looking at some input volatility, favorite contrarian stacks, all of that good stuff. I'm Pete Overzet, Block Party, Bully the Sims. Let's lock in.
Peter's one of the greatest depositors I've ever seen.
Trust the process. Let's go.
I got auto match with Etienne. Bullshit.
I just go the other way. In that 66, I win all the money. All the money.
If I had 150 lineups, I'd win too.
AP, Curry spot bullets in your head like KD. Bust it, bitch, go bust it. And I had 10 pints with me in Russia.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, there he is, JMToWin, week 11 here. Thanksgiving just around the corner. How we doing?
Doing well, man. I had an instinct, an impulse to run over and throw on a navy blue shirt and a backward hat and big headphones. Just right, like just as you were talking. I didn't have enough time, so I decided, all right, we'll just stick with what I've got on. But I'm doing well, man. Week 11, it's been a great, successful season so far. This is the second week in a row of Bring Your Kid to Work Day for me. So William flew with me this week to Oakland, and Goldie flew with me last week. So that's been fun. And yeah, so I'm really excited about this week. I think it's gonna be a fun week, very unique week. And so yeah, let's rock and roll.
Yes, excited to keep it rolling. I think my best week on DraftKings all year. I had a pretty tight pool last week and just couldn't quite get the combos together. I was like third in red zone going into the 4 p.m. slate with Amon-Ra still to go.
Oh,
and he scored that early touchdown, and then the McBride stuff went nuclear. Gibbs went nuclear, and I finished like top 20 in there. But want to keep the good times rolling this week, so I will be picking your brain, as we all will, to find us the best plays here. Let's go high level overview here. I'll get the spreads pulled up. As I do that, kind of what are you seeing from a macro perspective in week 11?
Well, one of the first things I posted in my journal this week was like, good Lord, look at all these quarterbacks. And then you get deeper into the week and you start seeing all the flaws with the quarterbacks. You realize it's not quite as spectacular as it seems on the surface. But I also know a lot of people start their DFS work on Friday, Saturday. Maybe you're tuning into this show and this is the first thing you're watching, or one of the first things you're watching. You're just opening up the slate. And so I think that's kind of one of the things that we see when we first look at things is it does feel like there are a lot of quarterbacks. There are a lot of attractive value running backs, but also some high price running backs who can go for big games. Not as many attractive value wide receivers, but some high priced wide receivers who can go for big games. And then Trey McBride with, no Marvin Harrison Jr. and a good matchup against San Francisco. And then we've got really not a lot of value at tight end. So yeah, I think the shape of this week is very interesting, where there's a lot of different pull. There's a lot of pull in when you're building rosters in the early going, right? It's like, I want to pay up at quarterback, but where do I find value? I can't really find value at wide receiver. So, there's good value at running back, but now I can't pay for Christian McCaffrey, or I can't go up to whoever else I like at this high end of the running back range. And I want to fit in JSN. I want to fit in Jamar Chase. And then you kind of get down to like the 6K, 7K wideouts. And you're like, but maybe one of these guys can put up a big game. It makes the salary work. So yeah, kind of a lot of fun, like push and pull this week. As I've gotten deeper into the week, I've started to get really comfortable with the value that is out there, but on the surface, it looks like there's not a lot. And so yeah, kind of a difficult week when you get started. And then I think the deeper you get in, the more clarity you start to get on this week. So hopefully we can kind of help with that. And again, this is one person's lens that we're looking through is mine. And so you'll get some other lenses on this show after I'm off the air, and then hopefully pick up some other lenses as well that you can see the slate through. But I'll be able to go through kind of what I'm seeing on this slate, at least in terms of where I think some of the value lies and some of the angles on how to attack are.
Yeah, we have 4 games with totals over 48. I want to say earlier in the week, the Bills-Bucks opened up over that total, and now it's come down a little bit. Obviously, no Dalton Kincaid, although I don't know if Dalton Kincaid is moving the line.
Line movement.
Yeah, maybe. But we get the rematch of the Bengals and Steelers, of course. Bengals continue to give up just all kinds of fantasy points to opposition. We get Bears, Vikings. I've been kind of dubbing this the volatility bowl with Caleb Williams and JJ McCarthy. Of course, we get what I think is probably just the game of the week from an NFL standpoint, Seahawks and Rams, and then Niners and Cardinals. Are those the top 4 games for you as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's, like you said, the volatility bowl, right, with the Vikings and the Bears. I mean, Caleb Williams has hit twice this year, and it was against Cincinnati and Dallas. And so then we can look at, like, you watch the games, and it's like, well, he can hit in any game, right? And so that's true, and that volatility is there to the upside as well. But we've seen the Vikings kind of try to hide JJ McCarthy when they can. Last week they couldn't. They had to throw the ball, 40 plus times. The other games, it was, 20, 21, 25 pass attempts for JJ McCarthy. And so they're definitely going to try to do that here. And if Brian Flores can kind of keep Caleb Williams off balance early in that game, it'll be hard for the lid to come off that game. You talked about the total coming down in the Bills and Buccaneers game, and similar, where it's kind of like, well, aren't the Bucs going to try to attack on the ground where you got this tremendous pass defense of the Bills? Sometimes the pass defense gets vulnerable, but that's always when the Bills defense has to shift and be like, we've got to sell out to stop the run, right? And so we have one of those spots where it's like going to be kind of hard for the lid to come off of that game, where we get similar to the Bucs and Patriots last week. You look at the game and you're like, oh, this is a potential shootout. And it's like, yeah, it is, but like with a lower probability than people think. And so, yeah, I don't really know that we have like clear shootout opportunities. Seattle and the Rams, 2 tremendous defenses, top 5, top 8 defenses, depending on who you're talking to and, talking about who they played and all that. But like 2 of the top defenses in the league, but 2 of the top offenses too, right? So that one could take off. That 49ers Cardinals game is starting to get really interesting to me because, the Cardinals are getting progressively more banged up on defense, and the 49ers are getting progressively healthier on offense. And then that Cardinals offense has been playing so well since Kyler Murray went down, funny to say. And then, the 49ers defense is still so banged up. So, yeah, I think there's some spots where we could see shootouts. There's also potential that we just don't get a real shootout this week. That wouldn't surprise me at all on this particular week. So, from a game environment standpoint, it's definitely a week where we might not have the game environment that takes off. One potential, I don't know if you mentioned this one. I was braining in a few different places. Did you mention the Chargers and Jags? That's definitely one that
I didn't include them just because I was using the cutoff of 48. But no, I definitely want to talk about that one. 43.
Yeah, that's another one where you just think about, the Jags have found a way to score points, including against some tough defenses, right? They got held down by the Rams, by the Seahawks, by the Texans. One time they scored a bunch of points against the Texans. Another time they scored a bunch. It was another good defense. Oh, the Chiefs. That they scored a bunch of points against. It's not always offense, but they're always finding a way to score points. And so if they're able to do that against the Chargers, Justin Herbert shouldn't have a hard time with the secondary, right? So if the Chargers get pushed, that game has kind of potential to really take off. And then, I would think that these late window games, the Seahawks and Rams and the 49ers and Cardinals would be the ones that I'd be most interested in from like an actual shootout, stack it up standpoint. I'm jumping over this Bengals and Steelers game. It's a weird one because Vegas has jumped off of the Bengals bandwagon. Bengals implied team total is 21 and a half, which I bet the over on that and certainly expect it to go over. But I think there's a difference between playing in Pittsburgh with that bad field versus playing in Cincinnati, right? You're going to have Pitt and Notre Dame playing there on Saturday, and then you got an NFL game there on Sunday. And so those things definitely factor into, what Vegas is seeing and what we can expect here. But that's another one that's definitely near the top of my list of like places to stack up.
Yeah, no, those are good shouts. And an interesting dynamic. I mean, we saw, we were getting excited about the Colts finally facing Pittsburgh because it was like, oh, is a team, going to push them and actually give us 4 quarters of, this offense. And then they kind of stymied them, and he didn't end up wanting any of the pieces. Ended up being one of Jonathan Taylor's, worst games. So I do think like we are all collectively getting pretty cozy with the idea of like Joe Flacco is just this fantasy kingpin.
Exactly.
And it could be like a wheels coming off spot as well.
Yeah. There's definitely opportunity for Flacco to be Flacco here, all of the confidence in, well, Flacco's just a machine and they just put up these points. It's like, well, there's going to be a game where it doesn't happen. The NFL's weird like that. I mean, the Packers have lost to the Browns and to who else did they lose to? The Panthers, right? Like the NFL is weird. And so the NFL is weird enough that Flacco can have this 4-game stretch where we can forget who Flacco really is at this point in his career. And certainly that can come back the other way. So, I think that there's notes of caution kind of everywhere. But if we're going to pick a game to stack up, we got to pick one, right? And I think that's definitely in the mix.
All right, let's get into the quarterback plays here. Just knowing
Actually,
go ahead.
I'm going to jump in real quickly. I do think this is a week where there's a lot of potential 30-pointers. So I just want to throw that out there. Because on a week like that, sometimes it's not about getting the stack right. It's about getting the stack that allows you to get as many of these potential 30-pointers as possible, right? So JSN, we'll get to all these individual players, but CMC, Rico, Dowdle, JSN, Jamar Chase, Trey McBride, there's a few others, but like there's a lot of guys this week who can go for 30 points. And it could be one of those weeks where there's 4 or 5 position players going for 30 points, and you need at least 3 or 4 of those in smaller field contests and maybe all 5 of those in large field contests. And so I do think there's a chance that like we always start with stacks, we always start with quarterbacks, but some weeks the quarterback is just about opening things up for you to get to those other players, right? And I think this is a week that could be kind of like that as well. We want to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and just to then kind of put a bow on that with also having the take that maybe this isn't a week where it lines up for some really big shootouts, that you are kind of handpicking maybe more studs and duds type of lineup builds to get access to the players as opposed to the game environments. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, if we think we can pinpoint, the math is always going to say like load up on a game environment, right? But we also have to be able to like look at things holistically and say, what if there is no game environment on this particular week? Or what if like my mathematical chances of picking the game environment are so low because it could be one of these off the board, off the radar types of games that the math still works in my favor to kind of pick these onesies and twosies, because sometimes these onesies and twosies are guys who do have like a 40 or 50% chance at putting up a big game. And so the math actually still becomes better of trying to stack a bunch of one-off plays. And so, I think that's something we just want to be thinking about this week, where there are players in identifiable spots for explosion. I mean, JSN could put up 40 this week. Christian McCaffrey can put up 40 this week. And we have to account for that possibility, right? If they're all putting up 30, you can kind of get away without that as long as you're getting other players that are posting high point per dollar games. But like the point of these high price guys is they can put up 40, they can put up 45 or 50. Like they can put up those monster games that you actually literally had to have. And I think that we could get 1 or 2 of those games this week from this group of players who can all put up 30 plus. And so, my eyes are definitely attracted to that group of players as well.
All right, let's talk some quarterbacks. I was going to say, I feel like knowing you, these price tags in these matchups, guessing you're not too interested in Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. If that is the case, who else up here at the high end are you interested in this week?
Well, I actually started out the week pretty interested in Josh Allen. If Lamar hits against Cleveland, he certainly can, right? That's one of those where, like, if I'm playing large field play, he's probably mixed in. But I've been focused on single entry 3 max for most of this year, and he's not going to make the pool just because you're taking on enough risk for that ceiling that it's not necessary. He can certainly hit. If he hits for like a huge game, so be it. Congrats to everybody who had him. The Bucks and Bills side is interesting because what we need is Josh Allen to be pushed. And there's always a chance that Tampa can push a team, but we're also falling back on priors from last year when Liam Cohen was there, from last year when this offense was healthier, right? They've done it once this year, but it does remind us what they can do. And so I don't actually expect the Buccaneers to have a big game on offense here. But I also want to keep in mind, so right now there's 2 quarterbacks who are like, I'm probably going to play 3 or 4 quarterbacks this week. And there are 2 who are pretty locked in to my pool. And so there's like 3-4 other quarterback kind of fighting for these final 1 or 2 spots. And Josh Allen's one of those guys, because it's like, what if the Bucks push things here? What if Emeka Ibuka has a big game here? I think that's a way to play Josh Allen, is like Josh Allen plus Emeka Ibuka. And you can throw in Khalil Shakir and hope you get the 20 to 22 points instead of the 15 to 16 points. But like, you don't have to stack Josh Allen with somebody. The real story is the Bucks are doing enough that it's pushing Josh Allen to take over the game. And that probably comes through Emeka Ibuka having a big game through the air. And so I have played around with that one quite a bit. I do think that the Bucks' clearest pathway to victory is to lean on the run and play a little bit more Sean Tucker than normal. It's sort of a weird thing because then you telegraph to the defense what you're doing. I don't think this goes full Jonas Gray here where they're like, hey, let's just play Sean Tucker this week, because then you're telegraphing like, hey, we're not really passing the ball on these plays, or that's not really like the intent of these plays. But I do think that the Bucks could lean on the run a lot more here, and that kind of slows the game down, and we get this muted game environment. But there is a world in which this game plays the upside. I'm keeping that one in mind. Other high-priced quarterbacks. I mean, yeah, above 6K, it's Herbert. I think Stafford is viable, but we've seen him have this run, 20 touchdowns, no interceptions across 6 games, all against soft defenses. Now he's playing Seattle. He's been priced up based on his performance. He doesn't give you any rushing upside. What are the chances that he buries me for not playing him? Those aren't high. What are the chances he puts up an elite game? Those aren't super high. So I think Stafford is viable, but he's not a guy he's kind of like one of the later guys cut out of my tightest pool, I'll say. So I like Stafford this week. He won't be on my tightest builds, but Herbert, he's going to have no problem with this Jags pass defense. So there's a couple complications. One, who do you stack Herbert with? He's had 4 big games this year. In all 4 of those, Herbert double stacks got there for elite point per dollar production, but it's been different combinations every time, right? So the math starts to get diluted a little bit when it's like, okay, you get Herbert right, you still might not get those other spots right. We love the spots where it's like, we know if you're getting Flacco right, you're getting Jamar Chase or T. Higgins right, maybe both guys right. If you're getting Brissett right, you're getting McBride right. So Herbert, it gets fractured a little bit, but still there's that world where he puts up 30 and 2 of his pass catchers are combining for 40, 45 points. And it's like, well, you kind of had to have it because that was the one that you needed. So Herbert's definitely one of these guys who's pushing for one of those final spots on my builds. The question is, do the Jags put up enough points to push Herbert? Because they, with Joe out, they switched to this ball out quick passing attack, but the Jags don't have a great pass rush this year. One of the things that I've been trying to really develop in my thinking is like pass rush isn't about individual pieces, right? Pressure from one guy, that's great in the stat sheet, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is when you're getting 2, 3, 4 guys pressuring the quarterback at once, and that's where problems arise for quarterbacks. So, Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines Allen, good pass rushers, but it's like, well, if you just have that and no interior push, the quarterback can deal with that. And so, this is an interesting game all the way around as far as how the Chargers handle this, how the Jags are able to put up points and push the Chargers. But I do think that this is one of the quarterbacks we should be thinking about from an elite high-end output type of standpoint.
For sure. And I would even say too, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but with kind of Keenan Allen's role kind of diminishing, Gadsden's emergence, I do think it's even a little easier to stack this team up than it was a few weeks back when, even Ladd hadn't fully emerged yet. So I like that angle. You didn't mention Mahomes, Andy Reid coming off a bye, Denver still without Surtain. Any interest in Mahomes cooking here on the road?
I mean, it's basically what we just talked about with pass rush, right? I mean, the Broncos get pressure on more dropbacks than any team in the NFL, but you can't see it in the advanced numbers. It's not just pressure from one guy, right? It's pressure from the whole defensive line. It's really difficult for a quarterback to have an elite game. So yeah, I mean, if I'm playing the Millie Maker, I've probably got to Mahomes. If I'm playing the slant and putting 150 entries in, he might not be in my pool, but it's also like, oh, if he hits, good for people who played him. I like there's 2 sides, right? There's like playing a guy who gets you a good score, but there's also not playing a guy and being like, where do I notice that I didn't play him, right? You notice you didn't play a 6.8K quarterback if he's putting up 35 points, right? If he puts up 31 even, I'm not like, oh God, why didn't I play Mahomes at 6,800 with an expensive stacking partner in Rashee Rice, or maybe you get the wrong stacking partner or whatever. When you're getting up to these higher priced guys, it's like the Josh Allen 40 pointers that you're really concerned about missing out on. I'm not concerned about missing out on that from Patrick Mahomes. So no, I mean, I've got a ton of respect for this Denver defense. They're not just Pat Surtain. So I won't be going there myself this week.
Gotcha.
And I don't know that I'd get there even in an MME pool.
One guy we should hit on just because he's finally back in our lives after a long absence, Brock Purdy. Just kind of curious your thoughts on him and if that changes the overall outlook for the Niners offense for you, or if it's kind of meaningless, that move from him or Mac Jones to him.
It's kind of meaningless right now to me, right? Because if like Mac Jones has been playing tremendously well this year to where, talking heads are out there like, man, teams should be trading a 2nd round pick for Mac Jones, as if, we haven't seen Mac Jones in other situations away from Kyle Shanahan. But that's how well he's been running this offense. What Purdy brings to the table is the out of structure stuff. That's the one thing that he's going to like, the throwing with anticipation, the getting the ball out on time, the putting the ball with good placement, the reading the defense well. Like Mac Jones is on par with Brock Purdy in that. What Purdy brings to the table that Mac Jones doesn't is the out of structure stuff. And we still don't know if if he's 90% healthy or 100% healthy. If he's 90%, he's basically Mac Jones still. If he's 100%, he adds a little bit of out of structure stuff. But I think we can access the upside of Purdy, the upside of this game environment through Brissett with a lot more confidence in terms of where the points are coming and how those points are piling up. And, maybe Brissett puts up 22 and Purdy puts up 26, but we take on less risk to get to the Brissett play. And it's a higher confidence play, which is funny to say, right? But we look through these game logs and we've seen what he's done, and against good defenses, against bad defenses. And it's a great game environment here for the Cardinals. And so, I think Purdy, Pearsall, those are definitely MME guys to me that I would want them in my pool. Pearsall's been back and forth for me of like, do I want him on tighter builds? Like, he was third in receiving yards through the first 3 games of the season, right? This is a guy who, when he's been on the field, has performed like a 7K wideout, and he's 5,400. So I think you can take that swing, but I don't think that we're gaining the same type of edge with Purdy in terms of like what type of score he puts up. Now, he does put up those 30-plus point games on occasion, right? So I don't have a strong argument against going to Purdy, but I'd rather just get down to Brissett in this game environment instead of going to Purdy myself.
Yeah, Brock Purdy, 5,800. Brissett down there at 4,900, so saving almost $900 there. Looking at early ownership projections, it does look like Jacoby Brissett is going to be fairly popular this week. I'm seeing over 10% ownership. The other cheap guy down there who I think is going to catch some ownership is one of the members of the Volatility Bowl there, JJ McCarthy, 5,200. Hasn't thrown the ball well in his starts, and yet now gets this matchup at home versus a Bears team that doesn't really rush the passer at all. So what do you think about McCarthy?
Yeah, I mean, what's game environment, right? We know how Kevin O'Connell's wanting to call these games. He's not wanting to put the game on JJ McCarthy's shoulders wisely, right? I mean, JJ McCarthy's essentially a rookie in his 5th NFL start. And, say what you want about the on paper performance of the Bears defense, but it's still a Dennis Allen defense. It still throws a lot of issues at a quarterback in terms of diagnosing what the defense is doing pre-snap, post-snap. And I mean, like the idea with JJ McCarthy would be he's throwing the ball a lot, right? I mean, we can look at his pass attempts through these first 4 games. It was 20, 21, 25, and then 42. And the 42 was chasing points. If he's getting to one of these heavy pass attempt games where he has a chance to actually post a big game, I'd have to think that Caleb Williams is also like getting unleashed a little bit. And I'd rather spend a little bit, kind of the reverse, right? I'd rather spend a little bit more for Caleb Williams because the ceiling is so high on Caleb Williams in the type of game environment where JJ McCarthy would be getting pushed. And so, I don't like JJ McCarthy's done some really impressive things on individual plays, but comprehensively throughout a game, we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen him put it all together. And so, I'm willing to be late to that party, especially on tighter builds. And, we don't typically create that delineation in our conversation of like, we kind of drop little things, right? Like, what are we talking about here, right? Some of you watching this are playing MME. Some of you watching this are playing smaller field contests. But generally speaking, we can tend to assume that the majority of people are playing smaller field single entry or even larger field single entry, but they're putting in 1 roster or 3 rosters, whatever, trying to get down to that tightest player pool. To me, JJ McCarthy's not part of it for me. I can see the case for it against this defense, but I think that the game environment has to pull a certain way. And if it's pulling a certain way, I'd rather just go to Caleb Williams where I think we have more ceiling.
So it seems like Herbert, Brissett, you mentioned maybe a third guy being in that tighter pool for you. Is it a guy we've mentioned or maybe a guy like Rodgers, someone else?
Yeah, it's in that same game. It's Flacco. And so for me, Flacco and Brissett will probably – Brissett's definitely going to be in my pool this week. Flacco's probably going to be in my pool. The only way Flacco gets pushed out is if I just go all in on Brissett this week. And there's a lot of factors on the all in on Brissett. It's not that I think he's the best individual play on the slate. It's that I think that you can build the best rosters this week with Brissett and with the highest certainty of what you're getting from a quarterback and pass catcher combination. Which we'll potentially get to when we get to the building blocks. But yeah, Flacco, we've seen it enough and we know we always talk about like getting things right directionally, right? Like last week, one of my main bets was that the Lions had a big game through the air. I didn't have any Jahmyr Gibbs, right? So I completely missed out on where that actual points came. But just like being able to place a directional bet that is high confidence is a big part of the challenge in DFS, right? The directional bet on the Bengals is like they're going to throw the ball a bunch. We know that, and that part's already solved for us. And then it's just like, are they successful or not? But we don't have to guess how they're going to attack and then hope that they're successful. We know how they're going to attack. And so I like that a lot. I like what this stack has done and how high confidence it is of where the ball is going, right? So I think that Flacco is just a really sharp way to continue to attack things. And then, Herbert and Josh Allen are kind of the main guys pushing for those other spots. Sam Darnold's another one where, I think people are kind of thinking, oh, maybe the wheels just fall off a little bit on the Seattle offense because they're playing the Rams. But like, man, if they get the ball off against that front four, that front seven, they're not going to have challenges in that secondary. And so this is the type of game where I could see it turning into like a 41-38 type of game with the Seahawks leading the charge and Darnold finally having to throw the ball 38 times instead of, 12 times, right? And all of a sudden we get the explosion type game from Darnold. So it's kind of, I guess, Darnold, Josh Allen, Herbert kind of pushing for those final spots for me.
Yep, that makes sense. And yeah, it is an interesting spot just because we just saw Darnold come off a game with 7.9 fantasy points, and it really had to do almost entirely about game script and the way the defenses were scoring there. So similar to what we were saying with the Colts going against the Steelers that week, it's like, man, can we actually get, the Seahawks pushed in a game here where we get it back and forth like they did against Tampa Bay in week 5 and he goes for 31 points. Like that's definitely in the range.
Yeah. I mean, I think people are always hesitant to pull the trigger on Darnold, and rightfully so. But because of that, we're looking for reasons to not play him instead of reasons to play him. And so you have a guy like JJ McCarthy that people are like, hey, maybe this is and it's like, boy, the Seahawks and Rams, this is like a NFC Championship preview, right? This is like one of the best games of the season. This is two of the top teams in the NFL battling in a very important game with two really good offenses. They're both going to be aggressive on offense. And it just feels like one of those spots where we could see the Sam Darnold explosion. And, obviously we can access it through JSN, but I think that Darnold could put up one of those 30+ point games this week.
All right, let's head over to running back this week. We got CMC at 9K up here at the top. Obviously, fans of Bijan are still tilting some of these Tyler Algier goal line carries. He's here at 8,300. Jacobs in that plush matchup against the Giants. James Cook coming off of a dud and maybe a little bit of a tougher rushing matchup. Assuming those guys at the top, do you like any of them?
Yeah, CMC is the cream of the crop up here. I mean, no surprises. Didn't he put up like a 54-pointer against Arizona last year?
Oh, you're right. That was when they were racking up the TDs. Yeah.
And with Kittle back, obviously it's a better rushing attack. We just know how involved he's going to be. So we know the floor is extremely high, but then also it's one of these spots where it's like the two spots where he had bad games, we were able to forecast them. Those are the only 2 weeks of the season that I wasn't on CMC, was against the Rams and against Houston. So it's not like we look through the game logs and it's like, oh, he had this 17.8 pointer, he had this 9.8 pointer. But it's like we could see those coming in advance. So we know that he's going to get up into like the 24 to 27 point range, which just in terms of raw points, that's great. And then we also know he's capable of like a 35 to 40 pointer in this game environment, where I do think that both offenses are going to perform well here. And so, I think that CMC is the guy up here. Next up would be Josh Jacobs. And the big question for me is workload, right? Because they were splitting things with Emmanuel Wilson. And then last week we saw Josh Jacobs play over 70% of the snaps. We saw him get, what was it, 26 touches? 26 touches last week. And so that would seem to alleviate the concern. But then that's, a 10-7 game against one of the other top teams in the NFC. If they're controlling this game, do we see limited touches for Josh Jacobs? Not limited, right? But like 18, 19 touches. And it's just, you're betting on so much efficiency at 7,800, right? It's not Jonathan Taylor where you're like, he's going to get 30 touches, not Christian McCaffrey, where it's like 50% of the offense is going through him. You're just saying this guy's so good that on 20 touches, he's going to have a monster game. So I think Jacobs can get there. I don't think he can really bury you like a 40 pointer. And so I'm not scared to fade him. Like I'm a little scared I would be scared to have no rosters with Christian McCaffrey, right? Because it's like, what if he puts up 40, which he very easily can do? I'm not scared to fade Josh Jacobs because he can put up 30. I don't think he can get up to 35 or 40 without something really fluky happening. But I think he's the next sharpest way to play this. And then James Cook is interesting because we've seen these big runs against Tampa. Obviously it was Travion Henderson last week. I'm blanking on who the other one or two guys were, but it was like they've given up some big games to running backs, but it's all been long runs. But that's James Cook's game, right? And so he could just get stonewalled and end up with like 14 points, 12 points, 11 points. Maybe he's not catching passes this week and it's like 7 points. Or he could end up hitting a couple of these long plays and all of a sudden he's up in the 23, 25 point range. So I think James Cook is viable. Another guy I'm not scared to miss out on in this spot but I think that you can keep them in mind. For me, it's like if I'm getting up to Cook and Jacobs, my next thought is like, how do I get up to CMC? And then it would be, hey, do I want a CMC plus Jacobs roster? But then you start thinking like, do I like JSN and Jamar Chase more than Jacobs? And so, yeah, I don't know that I'll end up on Jacobs on my tighter build just because of the nature of all of this, but he's certainly like, he's going to be in the player grid for me. He's in my tighter pool, so to speak. I just think he's a clear tier below Christian McCaffrey. And that doesn't mean that he won't outscore McCaffrey. It's just like range of outcomes. We play out the slate 100 times. You make more money on McCaffrey just spending that little bit of extra money.
So you mentioned like a framework for this slate, thinking about who are the guys who can go for 30 plus. I assume that is the conversation outside of these top 4 guys. Who are the running backs that you think could put up that 30-point game and be the guy you need in week 11? Yeah,
that's a great way to look at things. And I think it's Dowdle is very clearly the way to do it. And it's kind of like this MVP conversation where it's like, oh, nobody's talking about Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's not up there in the top of the voting because he's Sam Darnold, but Drake May, hey, it's his second year. This is flashy. This is new. And so Drake May is right up there at the top of the voting, right? Like Rico Dowdle, he's done it in 3 of his 4 starts, 30 plus points. And because his last game was 15 points, all of a sudden it starts to be like, oh, I don't know. I can't get comfortable with this one. And then it's like, he's 6,800. James Cook is 500 more than him. Josh Jacobs is 900 or 1,000 more than him, right? It's like, do I really want to go to Dowdle? But realistically, like this is how teams have been attacking Atlanta of late, right? We've seen this 4 weeks in a row. The Patriots were the only team that weren't able to really take advantage of this matchup, and they don't have a great rushing offense. But teams have been just like, okay, what makes Atlanta's defense tough? They're fast, but they're also smaller. And so teams have started loading up. The 49ers were the first to do it. And then the Dolphins followed that up. Dolphins had like 6 offensive linemen on the field for a huge chunk of that game against the Falcons. It's just been this thing of like, hey, let's just man up with big bodies and attack downhill against this Falcons defense. Well, who's perfectly suited to do that? It's the Panthers with Rico Dowdle at running back. And so, I think that Rico Dowdle, the floor ceiling range is really attractive. And he's one of these guys who it's like, I'm a little bit scared to not have any of him because he's only 6,800. And I think that we could easily see another one of these 30, 31, 33, 35 point games. So again, like if you've been listening to my stuff long enough, watching my stuff long enough, I'm always thinking in terms of range of outcomes. So I'm not predicting what's going to happen on a given week. I'm just trying to think about if we could play out this slate over and over again, what makes us the most money. And so Rico Dowdle, if we could play out the slate over and over again, he's one of these guys who's going to go for 30 points more often than other guys. And the price tag at this point is getting cheap enough that it's like, man, if he puts up 30, you're hurting by not having that. And so, I think that Dowdle is one of the guys. Dowdle's one of the guys I'm scared to not have on any of my builds. And I think that he's the guy likeliest to put up 30 plus outside of CMC and Jacobs. But again, Jacobs, you're paying this slightly heftier price tag. We've seen Dowdle get up to 36, 35. So yeah, I like Dowdle in this spot, kind of as my next guy behind CMC if you're going over, 6,500 basically.
I love it. I think 2 running backs who are going to be very popular, and I think there's probably a reason you didn't bring them up in the 30-point conversation, just because it is harder to envision them getting to 30 plus points. But that would be Jalen Warren and Chase Brown. I know you're into the Flacco side there, but what do you think about those 2 running backs? And obviously people very excited to pull down the flow chart. You just play running backs against the Bengals and you print money, right?
Yeah, I was nodding even before you said the names because I knew where we were going there. Yeah. The Jalen Warren one is interesting. I mean, both these guys are sharp plays. Both these guys are going to project really well. Both these guys should be in tighter pools. They're in my tighter pool. The Jalen Warren one is interesting because I think that people are getting a little duped by the fact that Kenneth Gainwell had 0 carries last week. You look at the stat sheet and it's like, hey, Jalen Warren's the guy now. Kenneth Gainwell had 0 carries, but Kenneth Gainwell played 50% of the snaps. I don't think that a ton has changed here. Jalen Warren is by far their best pass catching back, but we're dealing with Arthur Smith. He doesn't care. He's just going to play Jalen Warren on 1st and 2nd down. He's going to play Kenneth Gainwell on 3rd downs. And so, the Jalen Warren, like you said, you're not scared of these guys putting up 30 points outside of really fluky outlier types of outcomes. And so I think there's a lot of projection here to expect Jalen Warren to suddenly take a big step forward in usage, which I don't think we'll see. If we do, then he has the pathways to a truly monster game. But yeah, I think he has a very clear pathway to 16 to 25 points. And so I think that he's a sharp way to go. He's not a guy that I'm scared to not have. I prefer him on Flacco builds as opposed to on
Okay.
builds of other quarterbacks, because then you're betting on this game environment going a particular way. Chase Brown, I'm more willing to just play on any type of roster, because without Samaje Perine, we're still assuming that at this point, but it looks like we're trending toward no Samaje Perine. And without Perine, we saw him play 96% of the snaps last week. And we saw it down the stretch last year after Zach Moss went down. They were willing to give him close to 100% of the snaps. And in those games, there was a 6-game stretch where he scored 19 to 25 in all 6 games. Then he closed out the year with a tough match against Cleveland and one other good defense. I think it was Denver, Cleveland, and Denver, where he had like 13 points in those games. But this isn't one of those matchups. And so, 6 games in a row in this type of role, he put up 19 to 25. Again, like, it's harder for Chase Brown to put up the truly monster game, but we know he can do it through the air. We know he's not going to be like, he's kind of like a Travion Henderson in terms of like down to down efficiency. He's not going to be great, but he can have some breakaway runs. And so, the ceiling is there. Like, Chase Brown has a 30-pointer within his range of outcomes. It's low likelihood, but he can get there. But what we really like about him is the floor is so high, and he's got a pretty nice price considered ceiling. So I like both these guys. I like Chase Brown a little bit more than Jaylen Warren, but I'm gonna have exposure to both these guys. I may only have Jaylen Warren on my Flacco builds. I'm not totally sure on that yet, but I think that's a viable way to approach things. And they're not the only running backs under 6,100, under 6,200 who are attractive this week either, because you've got Aaron Jones, and I kind of got onto this Saturday night last week. Like, I actually went back, like, I'd watched that Vikings game from 2 weeks ago, and it was like, I said in my notes, like, man, Aaron Jones played a lot more than I think people realize. And then as we were getting into Saturday night, I was like, how much more did he play? And I went and like tracked the snaps myself up until he got hurt. I forget what it was, but it was like 26-5 in favor of Aaron Jones over Jordan Mason in week 9, right? So I ended up playing some of him in week 10. The game script got away from them, but once again, he played 70% of the snaps. So anybody who's playing 70% of the snaps and is still at age 30 explosive, capable of big plays, I think he's very interesting. I think DeAndre Swift is a guy that people continue to overlook, right? He's basically a lock for 15 points in every game. He's got these 2 games early in the season of 9.5, 10.8, but since this offense has gotten on track, 14.8 plus in every game with a couple, 23-pointer, 28-pointer. His role hasn't changed in this offense. You got Woody Marks, played 80% of the snaps last week, has a great match against Tennessee. So we can question how much of that was game script with them falling behind the Jags in that one. If they're in control, I still think they give Nick Chubb more work than they gave him last week. But the week before, Woody Marks was 60%. So, it's not just these 2 guys. These 2 guys are definitely the top plays, but there are other value plays here as well. And so, I think that you could get by with just saying, look, these are my 2 guys, sub 6,200. If you're building one roster, 4 or 5 rosters, you can be like, just these 2 guys and nobody else. But as you start expanding to more rosters, there's room to say, man, what if these guys score 15 to 17 and somebody else down here scores, like Aaron Jones can score 28. We've seen him do it plenty of times. Swift can score 28. Like, they have the skill set to do that. So I think you can branch outside these guys a little bit as well.
Yeah, I like that. One thing that I noticed about Woody Marks, and it looks like our guy Slice in the chat is excited about this play as well, that I thought was notable. You do have the game script stuff, but they gave him every single carry inside the 10. Didn't give Nick Chubb one, which you would conventionally say, hey, once we get in there, that's Nick Chubb time, pull Woody Marks. So to me, I wonder if that signaled a little bit more of an actual usage shift. There was also some quotes from the coach too, talking about the rookies. He was basically saying something to the extent of like, the training wheels are off. Like, it's time for Jaden Higgins, for Jalen Noel, for Woody Marks. So I don't know. I feel like there's a little stuff there that, we got the pump fake right in week 4 where he went nuts in that game against the Ravens. And then they kind of went back to the split with Chubb, and not saying Chubb's going to go completely away. But it does seem like they're trying to expand the role here for Woody.
Yeah. And that game in week 4 was against Tennessee, right? So like, there's that. Yeah, it's one of those things too, where as fantasy players, people are always like, give these guys a chance. Like, Kyle Williams gets that long catch last week, and it's like, why isn't this guy playing more? And then you watch last night, and there's 3 missed connections with Drake May where it all looked like it was Kyle Williams doing the wrong thing on the route in terms of reading things mid-play. And so you realize, like, these rookies have a curve that they have to kind of go down before they're ready to get the work. But it does seem like Woody Marks has gained trust. And when you watch games, it's very clear that he's a far better runner than Nick Chubb, right, at this point in their respective careers. So it's just a question of trust. If the trust is there, then you just keep putting more and more on this guy's plate. And so, I think that there are really interesting plays down here below the 2 obvious guys. And so, again, those 2 obvious guys are the best plays, but it doesn't mean that they're going to put up the best scores. And so we can be thinking outside the box on this group as well.
I have two other names I want to ask you about. One specifically, because I know you like the Chargers. Kamani Vidal coming off a 25 carry game. If you like this spot for the Chargers, is that just for the passing game or any love for Vidal here?
Well, it's an odd numbered week, so you can't play Kamani Vidal, right?
I didn't know. Yeah, oh, you're right. You're right.
I was in on I had him in light blue chip in week 9 against Tennessee because the way he's been being used and what a great matchup that was against Tennessee. I've done this long enough that I don't typically have those wounds don't typically carry over, but like now I'm like, man, Kamani Vidal, get out of my player pool. No, this is just a much better passing matchup than a rushing matchup. The Jags have been really stout against the run. So no, I think that Kamani Vidal, if you're betting on this offense putting up points, then all of a sudden it's like, well, 2 touchdowns could flow his way. So I think he's definitely below those first 2 guys and then below that next group. But in terms of could he get there, he absolutely could get there. So I'm not going to be on him this week because I'm going to have a tighter pool. I'm going to be playing 3 or 4 rosters this week. And so he's not going to make the cut for me. But if I were kind of expanding more and more, yeah, he'd be in the mix. Even if I were playing like 10, 11, 12 rosters, he wouldn't be on them for me. But if I'm playing MME, he's in the mix. And if somebody came and was like, am I making a mistake playing Kamani Vidal on tighter builds? Like my answer would be no. My question would be, what edge are you gaining, right? Like his big games were 25.8 against Miami, when they were still struggling against the run, 22.7. There's going to be other running backs in this price range who are going for 18 to 22, 25, right? So I think you take on more risk and you're not getting more ceiling. So I think mathematically it's fine to just stay away, but it's also fine to go there. It's just, I think, lower EV than some of these other ones.
One other guy, and it's safe to assume you're not getting there in tighter builds, but people pretty excited about RJ Harvey stepping into a bigger role with J.K. Dobbins likely out this week and potentially longer, has been pretty good on a per touch basis. But, Sean Payton going to do Sean Payton things. So what's your outlook for Harvey?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The chat in the Sean Payton meeting rooms, they know what he's going to do this week. I think defense, it's a thing where like, what does the slate provide for us? If this were a week where it's like, man, value's really tight and there are no running backs below James Cook who we can feel comfortable with, then you start being like, yeah, but Kamani Vidal, even in a bad game, could put up 15 and he could put up 22, 25. Like RJ Harvey could put up a big game, but there's so many running backs below 6.2K that are high confidence that, again, the question becomes like, what's the edge? The edge is if one of these lower likelihood guys end up scoring 30 and, Chase Brown is scoring 18 and Jalen Warren scoring 16, Aaron Jones is scoring 15, DeAndre Swift scoring 18. And all of a sudden you've got this huge edge because you got the 30 pointer. RJ Harvey is capable of it. Like his skill set is capable of it, but still like a matchup against the Chiefs and this pretty broken Denver offense, that's not a place where I want to go, but certainly like he's a guy who cycled through my thoughts. He's just kind of in the Kamani Vidal category of like, what do you win when you win? Well, if you get him right, you're still probably getting the same score that some other people are getting with less risk. He is the guy though, in this like third tier who is like, he could put up a 30 pointer. And so, I don't mind. I'd prefer him on tighter builds over Kamani Vidal because the upside is higher. The risk is higher as well, but we're trying to win tournaments. And so for me, maybe if it was like single entry, like 2,000 entry contest or 5,000 entry contest, as opposed to like a single entry, 500 entry or 1,000 entry contest. That's where it'd be like, yeah, it's maybe worth the risk to take on RJ Harvey. Although I think he's probably going to see some ownership too, right? So I don't know what the true edge is anyway, but yeah, the ceiling is there. The ceiling is attractive enough that you can make that case for sure.
Yeah, the interesting thing with him too, it's like they've been using him a little bit more in the passing game. They haven't given him too many rush attempts, but it's like what is vacated? It's all that base work,
all that
from J.K. Dobbins. Yeah. So even if like Sean Payton likes Tyler Beatty, if he likes Jaleel McLaughlin, like he might have no choice but to give RJ Harvey the base work touches because I don't think he wants to give Tyler Beatty 12 touches, but that's famous last words.
Sean Payton always has a choice.
That's true. All right, let's head over and talk wide receivers here. I think we have, a pretty clear big three, both by projection and salary: JSN, Puka, Jamar Chase. We haven't talked too much about the Rams yet. It sounds like you like JSN and Chase, but how do you sort these top three guys?
Yeah, I would rank them JSN, Chase, and Puka. And JSN, to me, we've just seen what he's done on a per target basis, and I'm not scared of the Rams secondary. And I'm just trying to be cautious of like what I say, because anybody can post a dud. But this is like the highest probability bet for a 25-point game of this group. And the ceiling is extraordinary. Like, we've seen the Devontae Adams, the Jamar Chase, the Antonio Brown, like the 50-point games. That's within the range of outcomes here. And so because the floor is so high and then the ceiling's so high, I want to be very conscious of JSN's presence on this slate. Puka is the nature of how he's used and the nature of this matchup just lends itself more to Puka being like this battering ram type player, right? Where it's like 12 catches, mostly short area stuff. And he's like, fighting through tackles and putting up 100 yards or 110 yards or whatever. But because he's not used heavily in the red zone, and because this isn't a spot that sets up well for a bunch of downfield work, it's just going to be like more work to get there. So I think he still gets to the 22 to 27, maybe even 30-point range, but his chances of going for a monster game are lower. And so if we're saying like, can he outscore these other two easily, right? Chase, we've seen him put up 20 several times with Flacco already, 2-3 times already with Flacco. He's put up 20, a mere 20. JSN could put up 25 and Puka could put up 30. But in terms of like the high end of their outcomes, I think Chase can put up 45 or 50 here. I think JSN can put up 45 or 50 here. I don't think Puka has a clear pathway to putting up 45 or 50 here. So honestly, any of these three are excellent plays, but that's kind of how I see it, is like Puka's the lowest likelihood of the three to post the monster game, which just tilts me toward the other guys. So again, small sample size of a week, Puka could outscore the other two, but and he could put up a 40-pointer. It would just take a lot breaking his way for that to happen, whereas a lot less needs to break their way for the other two guys. So yeah, to me, it's JSN, then it's Jamar Chase, and it's Puka. I'd love to have exposure to all three, but if I can only have exposure to two, it's going to be JSN and Chase. And I'm going to have JSN plus CMC rosters. I'm going to have JSN plus Jamar Chase rosters. I might have a JSN plus Puka roster. Like, there are ways to get these guys together, and I think that's worth looking for ways to do this week because we can get these monster scores from these guys on this particular week.
Yeah, and then down in this, next tier, you mentioned liking the Chargers, so curious your thoughts on McConkey. We have some of these other wide receivers that we haven't really discussed because their quarterbacks don't come into play. Nico Collins, Drake London, who from this kind of mid-tier, we can kind of say like the 6 to 8K range do you like?
Yeah, I'm on the app and I'm looking at 5 players kind of below that top tier. I will skip over Rashee Rice against Denver. Devontae Adams, where he has this huge end zone role and still hasn't gone for more than 3.5x his salary because they priced him up so high. So I'm not going to be on those two guys. And I'm looking kind of at this McConkey, Nico, Ibuka, Drake London, Justin Jefferson pool, and I've given serious thought and attention to all these guys. There's like, you put JJ and Ibuka together and it's 14.7K, and then you realize like you could put JSN and Wandale Robinson. Lord forgive me. But you can put like JSN and Wandale Robinson together. It's like the same price tag, and I'm biased toward like the JSN plus the 5.45, like the Ricky Pearsall, the JSN, the Jordan Addison. The Wandale Robinson, the Jordan Addison. Like, I'm biased toward that paired with JSN over like two guys from this price range. So that kind of tells you a little bit about how I'm seeing this price range. But no, I think that Ibuka can put up 30 if that game environment goes the right way. Justin Jefferson's probably the biggest underdog to put up 30 just because of, how JJ McCarthy has looked and how they're using him, but he certainly can do it. Drake London, not a great matchup against the Carolina defense, is stingy against wide receivers, but it's like you watch that game against the Patriots and they get him off of Christian Gonzalez a bunch of times, stack formations and whatnot, and get him on Marcus Jones, but also he had a sick one-handed tight coverage catch against Christian Gonzalez. Like, Drake London doesn't create separation. Like, either the offense creates separation for him or he catches tight window throws, but he catches those tight window throws. So I think he's still live for a 30-point game. Nico, you're relying on Davis Mills and, more importantly, game environment. So I won't be on Nico, but I think you can make a case for him. I liked him more last week, and then the game environment played out in such a way that the volume was there. I don't think that Tennessee's going to push this game, which kind of makes it lower likelihood that Nico gets all the targets. So he'd be 5th on this list for me. McConkey would probably be 4th just because he's not, like, you're talking about Justin Jefferson, one of the top 2 or 3 wideouts in the NFL. It's like in a great matchup. Like if the targets are there, Drake London is heavy volume and heavy reliance in the red zone. Ibuka, the only real weapon the Bucs have. Whereas with McConkey, it's like the targets could concentrate on him, or he could get 6 targets, right? So there's a question about, I mean, we see it right here, right? 6 and 7 targets his last 2 games. So yeah, he's 5th out of this group for me, but he could put up a big game, right? I would play him with Herbert. I'm not like, if I'm playing Herbert, then I'm like, hey, 2 of, Keenan Allen's big game was just 3-4 games ago, right? Like a 31-pointer. He can still do it. So it's like 2 of Keenan Allen, Ladd, Gadsden, and Quentin Johnston. And I'm not worrying about trying to project like price tags and all that. It's like 2 of these guys are going to hit if Herbert's hitting. Let me throw a Ladd on some of those rosters. But I wouldn't play him as a one-off away from Herbert rosters personally. And so, yeah, for me, these other 4, it's like all are viable. I think I'd go Ibuka, London, Jefferson, Nico, or Ladd, Nico from that group of 5.
Because just kind of circling back, knowing some of your favorite quarterback plays, you just spoke on the Herbert stuff. Brissett, obviously no Marvin Harrison. Are there any wide receivers you'd be into with him? And then Flacco, like any love for T Higgins, or is it kind of just the alpha stack with Chase and McBride, I guess, in the Brissett instance?
Yeah. So with Flacco, it's Flacco and Chase, but we know that it can play out a different way, right? So I think that the math says Flacco and Chase is highest probability. The actual math would say just play all 3 together, because then you're betting on the high end game environment. And so, yeah, like Chase is a better play than Higgins, but Higgins can hit. And I would want to account for that in my thinking at the very least, and consider playing him on that build, or even just play him instead of Jamar Chase. Chase is likelier to hit, but Higgins is very live in this scenario. And he can be played away from Flacco rosters as well. The Cardinals one is interesting because Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, they're not going to project well. They're not great values, but we said the math would actually say just play Higgins and Jamar Chase with Flacco, because, you're getting the solid floor, but also if the game erupts, you're getting all the points, right? Then you're winning a tournament with that. What's interesting about the Cardinals one, now, I mean, the math gets a little bit wonky here, but if you say Marvin Harrison Jr., like how many of his points are flowing outside of McBride, Dortch, and Michael Wilson? Like probably not many. So if you just take Brissett, McBride, Dortch, Wilson, and Marvin Harrison, put them all together, right? The points per game since Brissett took over, and then what's the price on those 4 pass catchers? Take Marvin Harrison Jr. out, and I've just got 4 pass catchers. The price on those 4 combined, like if you just take the points from these last 4 games, you're on a tournament winning pace all 4 games. And in all 4 of them, Brissett only threw 2 touchdown passes, right? So basically what I'm saying is the floor for this group lately has been keeping you on a 200-point pace, 190, 210, 215, right? Not exactly 200 every time, but like in that range of, hey, this can keep you on a tournament winning pace. That's been the floor, and we still haven't seen the ceiling yet, right? This game could play out. There's possibility for this game to go to overtime and be like a 38-34 type of game, 38-31 type of game. And if that happens, then all of a sudden you are looking at like this ends up scoring 100, 105 points, where you need like 75 to 80 to keep you on a tournament winning pace. So I think that I'm not interested in Dortch and Michael Wilson outside of Brissett rosters, but throwing one of those guys or both of those guys onto a Brissett roster is just a really sharp way to go mathematically. And I haven't popped these into Sims yet, but the hand builds that I've done with Brissett plus all 3 pass catchers, I would imagine those are going to be my highest ROI, like projected rosters on the week, just because the math works out so well in terms of if this game plays to the upside, but also, again, if it doesn't play to the upside, if it just plays to what Brissett's done across 4 games in a row, well, all of a sudden, you're sitting pretty with that as well, and you're able to fit in a bunch of these high-priced guys. So, I think that that discussion's interesting, right? You can, with T. Higgins, you can play him with Flacco, you can play him with Chase and Flacco, you can play him without those guys. Wilson and Dortch, I don't want to play them as one-offs, but if I'm playing Brissett, I can put one or both of those guys onto that Brissett roster and feel really good about what that's getting me.
Let's talk about some of the other maybe value opportunities here. And I'm trying to see some guys that might catch some ownership in some spots we haven't discussed yet. I'll throw out a few names and you can let me know if any of them are interesting to you. Wandale Robinson, 5,500 with Jameis Winston. Juwan Jennings, 5,100. You did mention Pearsall a little bit, so maybe you could talk about that again. Romeo Dobbs as maybe the only consistent option in the Packers passing game. Anything? Oh, I'll toss in Parker Washington too, as far as an option on the Jags.
Yeah. Now I'll highlight that you said like value, and then we're talking guys over 5K, right? I think that's kind of the nature of what we're dealing with here. Because once you get below this 5K range, it gets pretty dicey pretty quickly. And as has been the case, I've been talking about this the last couple of weeks, but like you take point per dollar production of like a Dalton Schultz or a Harold Fannin or an Arondé Gadsden, and you compare it to like wide receivers price in that range. And it's like, man, these tight ends are way better values. And like last week I was listening to Pat Curran and Lord Reeves, and they were talking about the, Kyle Williams and the guys who actually ended up hitting, but they were talking about these like cheaper wide receivers. And Curran at one point said, man, if you get 12 points from one of these cheap wideouts, you're going to be doing cartwheels, right? And it was like, that just highlighted for me of like how thin things get at these cheaper wide receivers. Yeah. And then the fact that like I played double tight end everywhere last week, K. Dotton, Dalton Schultz, because like I'm getting 20 points from these guys, and I'm playing them thinking I've got a pretty good shot at 15 to 20 points. And so I do think that like getting that second tight end in is a very sharp way to go. Because once we get below 5K at wide receiver, it gets really dicey. And again, like you play these cheap wide receivers saying like, I remember the week I got 20 points from Tyquan Thornton at like 3,300 when he was at the Patriots. And it was like, that opened up so much because you spent so little and got a 20 pointer. And you look at these tight ends and it's like, they're not sexy, but they can get you 20 points. They can actually get there. These wide receivers, I could tell, Pete, you were reading stuff in the chat and your ears were elsewhere. Cause I mentioned Wandale Robinson earlier, and I didn't get a reaction from you. And I was like, okay. Well,
you snuck that one by.
I snuck it by the goalie. I said, Lord, forgive me, Wandale Robinson. We don't have news yet on Slayton. Maybe it's come out since we started recording. Slayton missed practice 2 days.
I think he's going to be out from
my hope would be that he actually practices limited on Friday. Won't practice Friday. Jordan Random reports. My hope would have been that he practiced in limited capacity and then played. Because I actually think new head coach, Jameis Winston coming in, like those are the types of situations that would lead to a slight shift in role for Wandale Robinson, where it's like, hey, maybe we don't just have to use him on short area throws. Now, if Slayton's out, we've seen them use him downfield with Slayton out. And so then he like really pops. But the thing with Wandale Robinson, who I have maybe played once ever, because he's in that Keenan Allen mold of, hey, everybody loves him. He's always high owned. People play him for the floor. But the thing about Wandale Robinson on a week like this is, well, you are getting the floor. Like if Slayton were playing, or if Slayton ends up playing, it's like, well, your worst case is you're still getting like 12, 13, 14 points at 5,500. And that's pretty good in the context of where we're at in the season. But we know that if we're right about his role changing a little bit, you've got the ceiling. If Slayton's out, how often have we just targeted number one wide receivers with Jameis Winston throwing the ball? So Wandale Robinson, like I said, I played him maybe once ever. I love him this week. I think when I put him onto a build, I'm like, I put him onto my favorite roster of the week. And I was like, oh God, I hate the way that looks, but because that's not a guy I typically play. We were lucky a couple of years ago when like Keenan Allen went on that hot streak, and we were on him like 4 of those 5 weeks, right? Where I never played Keenan Allen because like you're just paying for the floor. And then there was a few spots and they were consecutive, right? They kept coming up where it was like, oh, this is actually a good spot for Keenan Allen to hit for like those rare ceiling games. We were able to spot it and be on it. And I kind of feel that way about Wandale Robinson here. I think Juwan Jennings is in play. I think Parker Washington is in play. More question marks in terms of floor than Wandale, but they could obviously outscore him. Ricky Pearsall, just as I mentioned earlier, he was third in the NFL in receiving yards through the first 3 games. We saw him put up at least one, 24 or 30 something pointer last year down the stretch. Like when he's on the field, he's kind of a force. It's just a question of, it's been a long layoff. Yeah, he's been ramping up throughout this time, but like, is he playing 40% of the snaps, 60% of the snaps, 70, 80, 90? We don't know, but the ceiling is there. He's definitely very interesting this week. And I think he's viable for tighter pools. Jordan Addison's viable for tighter pools. So Wandale Robinson to me is like kind of the alpha play in this group of the highest floor ceiling combo, but other guys could certainly outscore him. And I would say Addison and Pearsall would be the ones I'd be most attracted to from this group. Keenan Allen with Justin Herbert, kind of stacking them up and hoping you get the right guys. And then Juwan Jennings, Parker Washington, and Romeo Doubs below that. Romeo Doubs has been kind of like 2 weeks ago when Alec Pierce had like a bunch of targets and had like a non-Alec Pierce game where it wasn't just the downfield looks, right? I kept seeing him that week. And like every time I saw him scrolling through building rosters, it was like, I don't know, maybe Alec Pierce has a big game this week. I've had that with Romeo Dobbs this week, where every time I go past him, I'm like, I don't know, maybe Romeo Dobbs, and so maybe we're all picking up something, the vibrations of the universe, because it seems like people are talking about Dobbs more than normal this week, and he's kind of popping in projections a little more than normal this week. So like Dobbs is sort of weirdly in play for me, where I don't normally go there, but we know he has ceiling. It just doesn't show up often. But Wandale Robinson to me is kind of the play from this group, and then there are several other viable guys.
So there you have it. I think you mentioned vibrations in the universe. I think it's from Mercury being in retrograde, since you're on Keenan Allen and Wandale Robinson.
There we go.
There you go. All right, I think that's good coverage there. Before we quickly do tight end and then build our lineup, got to mention 1 week season. If you want to get JM's full thoughts on this slate as well as the rest of the squad over there at 1 week season, you can do so now with a 50% off discount on those rest of season DFS and inner circle subs. That's promo code Pete50 if you want to get access to the Discord and JM's running journal, his overnight thoughts in the scroll, all of that good stuff. Anything else people should know about 1 week season this week, JM?
No deals this week. Just the thing that I always say is, we've got a lot of free content. So as I always say, we kind of take a different angle and approach than some other sites. And so typically we're either for you or we're not for you. You show up on the site, you read some stuff, and you're like, nah, this is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something different. That's great. And if you show up and you're like, oh, this is what I'm looking for, it's probably different from what other sites are providing. There's a reason why it's clicking with you. And so, we tend to find that, people figure out pretty quickly if the site's for them or not. But if you like the content we put out there, check out the site, because, again, we take a lot of strategy and training approaches in terms of how to build rosters and how to attack each individual slate from a strategy standpoint. A little bit different from what you're going to get in other places. So check it out, see if it's fit for you. If not, keep hanging out with us on here and just getting kind of my overview thoughts on the slate as well.
Yep. You can always just, if you just want to dabble for a week and check it out, you can use that regular promo code Pete for 20% off and test drive.
We're also really generous with refunds, because we really don't care. Like if you come try it and you're like, this was not a fit for me, we'll refund your week pass or whatever. Just shoot us an email. So it's always no risk. Like with OWS, like just come check it out, because again, we just want to see, the people who it's a fit for. We want to get them in the door, and the people it's not, there's no reason for you guys to be hanging out on the site, and you can just kind of pick up, these podcasts and whatever else. But come hang out and see if it's a fit for you, and shoot us an email if it's not.
That's the email I'm going to send you if Wandale Robinson.
Yeah, there we go.
This week, hey JM.
I want my refund. These guys did not hit this week.
All right, let's talk some tight ends. I mean, pretty clear top play in Trey McBride. I think Kittle and Gadsden kind of jockeying for the 2 and the 3 spot. And then some interesting value plays like you were talking about, especially when you benchmark them to the comparably priced wide receivers. So maybe we save a little bit of the McBride combo, spoiler alert, for the block here. But what are you seeing at tight end?
Yeah, I'll run through this quickly, because we spent a lot of time on other things. I know you got your Youdacao coming on next. We don't want to bleed into that. We want to build our roster. I want to throw this out there. So earlier this week, start of the week, I put together in my journal, Harold Fannin plus David Njoku. They're descending points per game. So just like highest to lowest. And I put it next to James Cook's points per game, highest to lowest. And I promise you would be able to look at those two lists, and unless you spend a lot of time with box scores and DraftKings scores and like have memorized James Cook's game logs, you would not know which was which. And it was like almost identical in terms of what they're like, their 2 games of 30 plus, their number of games of 20 to 25, their 2 games sub 10 points. Both of the games of 30 plus for Fannin plus Njoku have come with Gabriel under center in his 5 starts. And so, it's one of those where, like, I started the week like, dude, this is just such an easy way to save salary, is just pop these 2 on together. And then you get deeper into the week and you're like, but isn't McBride going to put up 30 this week? Like if he doesn't, he's going to put up 18 to 22. And so I don't know how much I'll get there, but like, I like the idea of having McBride on my Brissett rosters, maybe having some McBride away from my Brissett rosters, but also playing Fannin plus Njoku together on some of those. And then obviously you can split them up and just say, hey, hopefully I get the guy who gets the most of these points, but they're just so central to this offense and they're going to be chasing points here. So cheaper guys, those are the 2 that stand out to me the most. There are some other places you could go to. You could go to Kyle Pitts. You could go to Theo Johnson with Jameis under center. You could say maybe Steelers tight ends against the Bengals. And then the guys you mentioned, Gadsden and George Kittle, because of the ceiling on both guys. and then Trey McBride because it's so high confidence, and he really should be priced at like $7K based on what he's been doing with Brissett. And then now we have Marvin Harrison Jr. out in a game against a defense that's attackable. So Trey McBride, really sharp play this week.
I guess one just quick follow-up question, then we'll build the lineup. Last time the Steelers played the Bengals, both Freiermuth and Jonnu scored, but it was Freiermuth who really went for that massive day. I guess two questions. Would you do the double Steelers tight end like you were doing with the Browns there? And if not, do you have a preference on which one you lean, Jonnu or Freiermuth?
Man, that's a sexy question there, Pete. Yeah, why not? Throw them in there together. I hadn't really thought about it. You don't think I like something like the Fan and then the Njoku because you have the consistency. You can look through and see like week after week after week. You're projecting a lot in this spot. But I mean, DJ Turner, I think he's starting to get some love from like the nationwide NFL fantasy community as a top cornerback. But like it's gone kind of under the radar. The Bengals have been great against wide receivers. And part of that is that they're so bad against running backs and so bad against tight ends that why test it. But like, DJ Turner's been awesome he's been one of the few bright spots for the Bengals on defense this year. And you just go to the tight ends in this matchup. I've looked at Darnell Washington too. I guess that's part of the problem is, Darnell Washington's going to be involved as well. And his run after the catch is in question because he's 380 pounds or whatever. But like, I think Freiermuth would be, and I just say it just because, he's been more consistently involved and he's the guy who hit last time. But the Jonnu thing is weird to me because he was so effective with Arthur Smith in the past. He was so effective with Miami last year in these monster games. And there's been very little schemed usage, which is where he typically makes hay is like, hey, like let's kind of get the defense flowing one way and get Jonnu Smith moving the other, get him in open space with one or two guys to beat. And he puts up these big games. And so I think that's still within the range of outcomes. It's not really how they've been using him, but Arthur Smith was the guy who started that with Jonnu Smith. And so, I could see either of them having a big game. I think you could play either one of them. I think you could play them together. Yeah, it's viable. I hadn't thought about that one, but I like that.
All righty. All right, let's get to work here and build a lineup. All right, we've kind of teased it throughout the show. You got a spot here. You are ready to jam in week 11. What it is? Yeah. So we're gonna call it the 5 for 5 block, hoping that Brissett plus McBride hits for the 5th game in a row. 5 games in a row of 41 plus DraftKings points. You got up over 50 in one or two of those. Basically, just keeping you on a tournament winning pace. Which there's no other way to spend 11.2K in salary and have had a 4 weeks in a row of keeping you on a 200-point pace with a game environment coming up where you're like, hey, it probably happens again here. And so just a really sharp way to attack this slate. Again, not saying Brissett's going to put up the biggest score on the slate, but it's like, how do we attack this slate based on everything it gives us? I think if we want McBride, we'll just paying down for Brissett, taking the savings at quarterback, and then freeing up salary for other spots. A great way to go. Pete, I say we go ahead and don't put on both Cardinals wideouts on this roster because if we do, we're going to start trending toward maybe a roster that I've already built this week, which we've done a couple times already this year. Once to great effect and once to not so great effect. But yeah, so let's go ahead and throw in Christian McCaffrey on this roster. Yep. Let's
go ahead and throw in, I'm going to try to move through this a little quickly because of time, but let's throw in the Titans defense on this roster. Okay. Titans, if we're going cheap, it's the way to go, right? You're taking on Davis Mills, you're taking on this bad offensive line, and a Titans defense that is continuing to play aggressively, and they've had some solid games throughout the season. And then let's go ahead and throw on Chase Brown and Wandale Robinson, just to kind of give us a sense of what our salary looks like here. Obviously, we're going to need some savings from here because we don't just want to go 5K across the board, 5K players across the board. And what we probably want to do is see if we can get up to JSN. So in fact, Pete, let's throw JSN on and throw in one value play in Greg Dortch and see what this does for our salary from here. And so 4,100 is going to be basically like a tight end over here, right? So we're going to have like Harold Fannin. We're going to have, what's actually interesting this week is Cooper Kupp, where it's like, what's a spot where Seattle might try to get him a touchdown? It would be against the Rams. But rather than going there this week, we could put in Kyle Pitts here. We could put in Harold Fannin here. But yeah, it just kind of illustrates the fact that honestly we get down to Michael Wilson because he's 3,800, but illustrates for us like the types of rosters that can be built when we're messing with this Brissett stack, and also still being able to get in two of these high priced guys, getting in a lot of these guys who can put up 30 plus points. And why don't we throw in? What do you want to do? You want to do Pitts? You want to do Fannin on this roster?
I think both those options look good. Let's go ahead and do Pitts. I mean, I think what I like about this lineup is the Uber punt in Dortch is directly correlated with the biggest bet you're making, which is
right.
Brissett goes nuts. And obviously you can play McBride solo, but if you're playing Brissett, like you're hoping that someone else is also contributing. So I like that. It plays into what you were saying with the double tight end stuff. I think the one interesting conversation here would be in the search for that 30-pointer. Like I know you mentioned a guy like Rico, like what kind of 2v2s if you go Rico in the flex instead of double tight end and then go down at JSN, and Rico's your guy getting you a 30 burger. Do you like that 2v2 potentially more?
Yeah, as if these are not thoughts I've gone through deeply building this very roster. So if you take out Rico, you got to go down on Wandale is basically where you're at.
Okay.
And so you put in Rico instead of Chase Brown and saying, Chase Brown, solid floor ceiling, but you're probably getting the 20-pointer, maybe the 22, 25. And so you put in Rico hoping you get the 35. And then you can't play Wandale on this roster. And you basically have to figure out where you want to save that salary. And you're going to get down in like the 4,500s. If you're throwing in, Fannin, but you could, let's throw in Jonnu Smith and actually see what that would look like. Because Jonnu Smith is only 2,900. And that actually is going to be just enough to get us up to Wandale Robinson. Ooh, that's a sexy roster. I think that's the first time I've used the word sexy on this podcast. Now you've used it twice. So
yeah, you said I had a sexy question there.
Sexy edition of this with the you throw in Rico Dowdle, the salary's going to work out just right. I've definitely played around with this core enough that like as soon as we went down to Jonnu, I knew that this was going to work. And so there's ways to get like a lot. I mean, and again, this is what I'm talking about, right? Like you look through this and you're like, who are the guys that I'm scared could bury me? McBride's on that list. JSN's on that list. McCaffrey's on that list. Price considered Dowdle's on that list. And we have a very sharp roster where it's like a core bet on the Cardinals having a good, like another 2-touchdown game through the air. Literally, if they have a 2-touchdown game through the air, like we're getting Brissett plus Dortch plus McBride, right, at a tournament winning pace. And then that's freeing us up for JSN, Rico Dowdle, Christian McCaffrey, all guys we're scared could bury us. With Wandale Robinson, who I think is a very sharp play this week, weird to say it. And the only like questionable play we're taking on to make it all happen is Jonnu Smith, right? That's a questionable play. It's quite a questionable play, but we know that the ceiling's there in this game environment, and so there's a lot of things that you can unlock when you kind of it's stars and scrubs, but it's like part of the scrub is just one of these cheap Cardinals wideouts that is attached to our stack. So like mathematically, it's very sound to attack things that way. And again, JSN could score 25, CMC could score 20, but what we're looking at is like, can't these guys score 40, 45, 50 this week? And if that happens, now we got a bunch of them on a roster together. And I just think like we play out the slate 100 times. This is the way to attack this week is to see if we can fit in multiples of these guys that we're scared could bury us this week.
Yeah, no, and this is a fun way to get the four guys that could go for 30 plus. And it's really just a matter of optics or PR when you think about Trey McBride as a tight end, because he's performing like an elite wide receiver.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So it's basically just like a 4 wide receiver build where you punt it off at tight end.
Yeah. And I want to talk about this real quickly is you can play around with the salaries on this. And like, you could go Jamar Chase and Christian McCaffrey on this. You could take out, because of all the value at wide receiver, at running back, you could take out Christian McCaffrey and go down to Chase Brown. And you could get up to Jamar Chase and JSN on this roster. Like there's a lot of different ways that you could play around with these different pieces that you're scared could bury you for not having them on this week. And there's basically about 5 guys to me. It's McBride, Chase, JSN, McCaffrey, and then price considered Rico Dowdle are the guys likeliest to bury you for not playing them on this slate. Other really strong plays, but those are the guys who I'm like, oh, these guys could go way over what you need at their price tag. And so you can fit 4 of these 5 guys onto a roster. I don't think you can fit 5, but you can certainly fit 4 of them onto a roster, on a really sharp roster pretty comfortably this week.
All right, there you have it. A build to give you guys some ideas for your personal teams this weekend. JM, a pleasure as always. We'll see you next week for week 12. And up next, we got Youdacao with the Bully the Sim show. JM, until next week.
Next week.
Peace. All right, Yuda, we're back. Did you win a milli again last week?
No, I did not. Wow. Unfortunately, I got scammed this time.
Man, I should add shit my money come on. You're only allowed to come on if you win $1 million the week before.
Yeah, my bad.
How did your week 10 go?
I think it was like a typical loss. So nothing crazy. Just was wrong on the wrong. I was off on the wrong flips. But nothing unusual. Yeah,
I ended up getting on. I had a Davis Mills double, and then I was thinking about your Tyler Shuck double, the Olave and Juwan Johnson. That hit pretty good as well.
Yeah, like there was all pieces, but I don't know if there's nothing really like great from a combination. But I don't even exactly remember what you needed. So
you needed Gibbs, Etienne, Henderson, McBride.
That's right. I was under on Etienne, so that was probably the biggest factor. But I was well over on like Henderson.
Yeah.
But that said, maybe you don't gain as much because of like how good Gibbs and Etienne were. Because like McBride was also good enough to go flex, and you probably at that point, if you have those guys, you're going like cheap tight end and double tight end even. So.
Yeah, the exact same thing happened on Underdog, where early it was like, holy cow, your Etienne Henderson teams were nutted, and Henderson was like this low ownership guy, and then Gibbs goes nuts, and it's a 2 running back site, and so it's like it doesn't even matter, like literally doesn't matter. All right, well, I think that's actually a cool place to start, because if there is an input volatility spot, and if there is this week's Trevion Henderson, I think you could make the case that it's RJ Harvey in Denver with no J.K. Dobbins. We've seen him be really good on a per-touch basis. What kind of shakeup or shakeout, I should say, do you think we get in the Denver backfield with no Dobbins?
I mean, I guess it's not as appealing because they could also, like, they've been known to just use as many running backs as necessary. Since he's already keen on like going down the depth chart, and then Bo Nix can run a little bit, and it's like this brutal matchup against like bye week KC. So all of that makes it less appealing. And like, I suppose like from that angle, even if he were to get like a healthy amount of snaps, like 70%, something that you'd be really happy about, it's still kind of difficult to get there in the matchup. That's going to be like big divisional game, and both sides, or Denver's going to want to slow it down, and KC might think the same way.
Yeah. I think it is like, I mean, I'm looking at what the Run the Sims default inputs here, 45% of the rushing. And it looks like Jaleel McLaughlin is really the guy who could be the fly in the ointment. If he's getting, like, if you slid this 25% rushing market share to RJ Harvey starts to be really interesting, but that's probably a dream.
Yeah. And like, I actually like those numbers, but so like the 12 projection at that price isn't amazing.
Yeah. And this ownership too, I think could inch up as well, because there's some enthusiasm for Harvey here.
Yeah, I could see that. I like at least the KC pieces a little more because of like them coming off the bye. Like if there was anything for them to work on, it would just be to build up that Xavier Worthy threat, which is going to be important for them like going down the road. And since Rice came back, he hasn't really had his looks. It's like a lot of times it's actually looks like he's creating spacing, which is like somewhat of a threat the way his speed operates. But they also have to like take those shots once in a while to really make people worried.
Yeah. Yeah, let's I know we might touch a little bit more on the Chiefs when we get to some of your favorite contrarian angles. I'm trying to think through some of the other input volatility spots. I mean, I've been calling this Chicago Minnesota game the volatility bowl. I'm curious your thoughts on, I guess, both of the quarterbacks and maybe just like this game environment. Like how do you see this playing out? Because we've seen like Dr. Jekyll and Hyde stuff from Caleb and mainly just bad stuff from McCarthy so far.
I think the markets have that steaming over a good amount, actually.
Okay.
I don't necessarily get that angle. But with McCarthy, I actually think at his price point, he's relatively chalkish. So like I'm not like super keen on it, but like I'm probably like equal to the market as far as how I feel. And Bears defense has certainly had a lot of holes, so it could be coming from that perspective. They're in the dome.
Yep.
Like I've sort of been bullish McCarthy the past 2 weeks anyway, and he hasn't really performed. So it's like he's coming down. I'm a little less enthusiastic just because the market's getting there from these price points. But yeah, I'm not gonna like start all of a sudden fading as the price keeps getting lower.
Yeah. And I assumed this game for you has a pretty wide range of outcomes.
Yeah, it's almost more on how the Bears operate because they sort of have the capability to like speed up to a great extent. But also given the environment, Minnesota defense could be pretty confusing too. Going in as an underdog, I could see them just try to slow it on purpose.
Yep. Yes. I'm trying to think some other spots here where we have kind of a shakeup. I feel like the Jags pass catchers is definitely an input volatility spot. I don't know if we have updates on if Brian Thomas Jr. is going to play. I know Parker Washington's projecting well. Jacoby Myers getting integrated into the offense. Also don't know if we're going to get Brenton Strange back this week. Do you have any takes on the pass catchers there?
Thomas probably doesn't play, I believe. It's shaping up to be a bit of a slow game in my opinion. So I like Etienne getting like a good pass game role. With LA being somewhat run funnily, have like the zone based coverage, so they like to keep everything in front of them. Jacksonville actually run blocks pretty underrated, and LA can't really stop that very well. And I think from scouting stuff, like Etienne kind of looks like his like year 1 and 2 form more so than last year. And so, and even going back to college, he's like been a pretty explosive pass catcher. So I like their run game. Like Parker Washington probably projects well as far as like the target share stuff. He doesn't really scare you in like a way where you like have to take him in GPPs because like there's kind of a limit to the ceiling. Then with Chargers O-line is like much maligned right now. Could create like some like shorter drives. So I actually like maybe like Etienne, Jags a little bit.
Yeah. And I think, now that things are condensing a little bit around the Chargers, I don't know if people are super stoked to play Vidal this week, but I could see people getting to the Herbert double stacks. Any thoughts on those pass catchers? We have kind of seen it shake out where Ladd's now more the clear number one. Gadsden's emergence has really come at the expense of Keenan as well.
Right. I think I had mentioned that like in the end, it was still quite likely that it would be Ladd when they were all like within a point or two of each other back then. But like I'm not super into their pass game just because of the things I said. Where like I'm not sure they're going to do a great job stopping Jags run game, so that kind of doesn't leave as much time on the clock for them.
Yep. Chat talking about another input volatility spot here. We get Jameis taking over for the Giants with Dart out with the concussion, and we just got news that Darius Slayton is officially ruled out. I think the ownership on Wandale Robinson is going to continue to tick up, but like curious, how do you see this offense with Wilson playing out? Or sorry, with Jameis?
It would be like it would operate from an efficiency standpoint, probably similar. I would assume actually maybe a little worse because Dart wasn't playing that terribly like on the field with just like being so aggressive with his legs. And he was like really like he like won a few games for them that way. So you can only think that it's beneficial to Wandale. To what extent, we don't really know. But it's kind of like somewhat similar to like when Joe Flacco comes in for whoever he would, where like just naturally they're going to be projected for like 4 to 5 more pass attempts.
Yeah. Do you, if assuming Robinson does start to get steamed, does that strike you as good chalk or bad chalk here?
I feel similarly about him to like Parker Washington. So
Okay.
like probably somewhat of a fade, but like fine as a one-off and rather good if it's like a +1 to like a Green Bay stack.
Gotcha. Yeah. What thoughts on that's another input volatility spot for sure. I mean, with the pass catchers, we got all these Q tags, injury spots here. I know we're waiting for some news there, but like, what's kind of your macro overview of these pass catchers?
That they're all like pretty good receivers from a talent level standpoint. Like most of these guys would be like a solid number two on like all the teams. They just have 5 of them. I like Watson. I would if we get clarity on Golden being out. Or do we have anything on that?
I have not seen that. Chat. You guys can let me know if we've gotten any news today, but I haven't seen any news on Golden.
Yeah, I like what I'm seeing from like Watson's explosiveness. Looks like the same old version, and he had like publicly had that tweet where he like feels bad about missing the catch that went off his helmet. But also like I like his chance of getting behind this New York Giants secondary.
Yeah,
they're rather slow. Can't really stay in front of anyone, so it's like a good matchup for him.
Yeah, what do you think about that? I mean, I've definitely chased some of the Packers passing game in these good spots, and then it always inevitably ends up being a Josh Jacobs spot. Like, how do you think about that of them being able to probably run on the Giants a good bit?
Yeah, it would certainly just be like I wouldn't have like these pass catchers go to quarterback with Josh Jacobs because it's just they're probably more anti-correlated than most teams would be. But like at least you don't have to double stack. Like there's no real need because the ownerships will be so low that just the 1% Love and like 2% Watson is enough to differentiate your teams.
Yeah, for sure. It does look like Joel mentions Golden practiced in full today. Does that take you off the Watson stuff fully if he goes, or do you still have interest there?
As far as like being high confidence on it or like really want to go there, yeah. Just like because they're operating very similarly. Like the Golden role is the Watson role, and it's hard. There's no real need for both to be on the field at the same time.
Yeah. One spot I got to ask you about because we have some new faces returning is the Niners. So we're going to get Brock this week and Pearsall as well. Curious how you think that changes the outlook for them.
I'm not sure Brock is like moving the needle as far as like how well the team would do. Like, I can't say for certain he's an upgrade over Mac Jones. I mean, Pearsall being out there is certainly going to help the offense. Yeah, not really that much to add.
Yeah.
I guess the Arizona side is a little more interesting just with like the amount of chalk that's likely coming on these guys.
Yeah. It seems like Jacoby and McBride will be chalky, maybe some Michael Wilson. Is there anyone else?
I think Michael Wilson gets to be pretty chalky the way things are right now, where people want to pay up for like McCaffrey as the top spend and like Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
So it's hard to imagine like, and also just McBride being that standout tight end play, Brissett being cheap, the MHJ being out is going to condense ownership a good amount onto like Michael Wilson.
Yeah.
I mean, I think most have Michael Wilson over Greg Dortch. So
yeah, looks like the Run the Sims projection here, Michael Wilson 8.4, Greg Dortch 8.9. Is that you guys let Davis? Is that his baby gift? He got to put his thumb on the scale of Greg Dortch.
I think the Wilson is doing more of the Harrison stuff. And Dortch role isn't going to change. It's going to be an uptick in like just from necessity, but it's not like the role as far as like what he needs to do on the field expands.
Yeah. Any thoughts on the backfield? I mean, what a mess here between I guess it's Amari and Michael.
We don't need to go there, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay. Just avoid. Let's see here. You normally send me over some notes. You said no favorite game this week for you?
Not like a standout, but like I have like plays that I'm interested. Like it's mostly just because there's not one game that has both sides that are appealing to me. It's only they tend to be more one-sided.
Yeah. Well, that kind of dovetails. I was just doing the show with JM, and he was kind of similar, that there wasn't as many attractive games, and he's more in the mindset of, I want to find the 3 to 4 guys who are going to go for 30 plus points on this slate, and less of a game stack kind of a week.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly do that with like Cincinnati Pitt, but like I wouldn't want to note that as like my favorite game, just because a lot of ownership is coming through on that game.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, the other, the one spot we should definitely talk about that we haven't hit on yet is this Rams and Seahawks game. I mean, from a real life perspective, big implications, 2 of the best teams there. What do you see for fantasy though?
I think because it's like such a big real life game, it kind of diminishes the appeal of the fantasy side. Because there's not going to be anything where like a team is just like going to lay down, or it's like so low resistance that like anyone could get there. Just like based on like play call, stuff like that. Cause those are the spots where like things really snowball, like sort of how like Detroit was last week. You're not going to get any of those situations. And it's actually rather similar to like from the distribution of like what the plays would be. Like no one's going to take the quarterback. No one's going to take the run game. It's just going to be JSN or Puka. I think Puka is likely to be lower owned here.
I think so.
Than JSN, because there's like a little bit of the health concerns, and he hasn't had like any big ceiling performances. So, and it's actually hard to get there if like people are going towards Jamar Chase, McCaffrey. They're both going to be lower owned than those guys, but I think Puka is a little bit overlooked. So I think I like him a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So just like a tricky game to get into here. Are there any of the ancillary pieces? You mentioned the run games not being that attractive. Shaheed, Rams tight ends, anything there?
No, I'm sort of with the market on like these guys being like 2% for a reason. Yeah.
Yeah. Very unfortunate, because if we could just combine all the Rams tight ends into one player, they would be very interesting. Let's see here. Do you have any, we can talk a little bit more about the chalk on this slate. We already kind of did it with the Cardinals. Other chalk spots that I guess we haven't fully discussed would be like Jaylen Warren and Chase Brown in that game. How are you thinking about that?
With that, generally, since they're not necessarily like between the tackles guys, I'm not opposed to having both on the same team.
Okay.
But it's almost like it has to be at least a max 2 or something with their QBs. Like I can't have the QB and then both running backs.
Okay.
So it's like if I get both running backs, you're sort of hoping like it's kind of slower. They're getting receptions and like siphoning touchdowns, and then the whole game kind of isn't great. But you can certainly go from like take an angle of like either of these guys with one of the QBs, just because like they have that receiving element where like even if like the Flacco chase goes off, Warren could be racking up catches, or like same thing like Rodgers, DK, Jonnu, stuff like that. It could be Chase Brown getting the work.
Yeah. And then as far as like Chase, obviously going to be very popular. Any thoughts on the quarterbacks, T. Higgins, Steelers passing game? Are there any other like unique ways to get into this?
I mean, I like it as is. With like the Chase ownership being high, I think that's rather efficient. It's deserved. I might be a little under on like these running backs in general.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really it. Pitt is a little stingy historically to like check down stuff and a little more leaky to like wide receiver one or receivers in general. So maybe like a relatively lower on Chase Brown.
Okay.
But other than that, nothing that much of note. I guess since he's also rather leaky to like the middle of the field, which is where Rodgers likes to operate a good amount.
Yeah.
Like they're pretty generous to tight end, or like actually right now outlier generous to tight end, even going back to last year, much more than I actually could imagine. So their tight ends are averaging 85 yards a game against Cincy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, we have the fantasy boost, the DVP stuff, and like 8.9. Next closest is Jags at 4.6 for the boost to opposing tight end.
Right, but because like it's also the number to running backs is high, it just indicates that like the flat and like the short middles like very uncovered.
Yeah. So then if you were to like, does DK Metcalf fit into that, or is it plugging your nose with one of Johnny?
It would actually be kind of a dock on Metcalf because of how sort of low resistance that part of the field is. And it's actually the tight end number is actually going back to last year too. So it's getting to be a huge sample. It would just be like Calvin Austin, somewhat, Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, Jalen Warren. It's kind of boring because when you go that route, it's not likely that the game is fast. It's kind of likely that they're converting second and third downs that way.
Do you have a favorite of Freiermuth and Johnny?
I don't know. I would have to look at the usage. And I think they have a rather similar role in that like both of them get more snaps when they're from behind.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe it could be somewhat appealing with like Joe Flacco or Jamar Chase.
Yeah. Let's hit on some of the contrarian angles. You mentioned a few of them so far. The Watson, if no Golden, Etienne. Talk about what's a quarterback? Or do you got a vomit stack for us? Any shuck type?
It'd be Josh Allen.
Josh Allen, the opposite of vomit, the pay up stack.
Yeah, a lot of like that's part of it. Not too much talk of like trying to pay up with like these really good with like basically all the top producers at the position spots with like CMC and guys like that.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like the Josh Allen, like I guess the Buffalo side in general here, coming off like this horrendous game. You have like cold weather Allen coming, and then Kincaid out is going to hurt their like how easy it could be for them as far as efficiency, since he's probably been their best pass catcher. But at least in this scenario, it gets the other Buffalo pass catchers to be a little more viable from like a value standpoint, which was sort of the issue a lot of times on DK. When you're trying to play these guys, they're always like 500 more than they should be. So now it's like rather close to like getting there to be appealing in value. And when you click on like a Shakir or Keon Coleman, you're not really buying their talent. You're just buying them for Josh Allen anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that just also because like it's also a big game. And then when he has these ceiling games, it's like the defense isn't stopping him no matter what they do. And like no matter how mediocre the receivers are, it's not even going to stop them from scoring points when it's just Josh Allen doing this thing.
if you did have it also seems like we're going to get Joshua Palmer back this week. Yeah. But if you do you have a favorite stacking partner or two for him? Do you get into the tight ends, a little Dawson Knox or something?
I would just mix it up because I don't necessarily know how it would shake out, but like I'm even open to going Josh Palmer.
Yeah.
But like kind of I'm probably going to be over on Allen and then over on like all the guys by like the same margin of however much I'm over on Allen. Like Dawson Knox, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah. Do you can you envision yourself setting any rules? Like would it be max 2, max 3, max 4 with Allen? Like what would it be?
Yeah, it's definitely max 2.
Max 2. Gotcha. And then in this with this thesis, do you need a Bucks piece? Do you need them to be pushed, or is it too kind of messy and it just doesn't work out with the Bucks?
I think it's just tough from the price standpoint. I don't think it's like that likely that this game explodes from a total standpoint. It's just that I think if you get the good version of Allen, they're just very efficient, and he gets like 4 touchdowns in various ways. You're kind of just hoping that it's not James Cook when you do this.
Yeah. Yes. I guess we have some wrinkles. I don't know if we've gotten official news on Bucky and Chris Godwin. Is your read that
I think they're out. I saw they're out.
They are officially out. Okay.
I mean, I bet Buffalo, so there's that, but like that's not that related because they could have a defensive win too. Like I'm just not terribly confirmed or not terribly high on Tampa offense right now.
What was it? Did you take? Is it Bills like 5.5?
Yeah, it was 5.5.
Okay. All right. That's good notes there. Let's circle back to Worthy. He was one that you mentioned here, and you know what? Coming out of the bye, how do you think they attack Denver here and Worthy at 4,900? It sounds like you're interested in
it's just like typical. The logic is just like typical read bye week stuff where they're historically just very good out of the bye, and they, as it turns into like December, even November, December, they ramp up what the team needs. So they tend to be like clicking going into the playoffs. And that's really just like they got Rice going. I think all that's left is kind of creating the threat of Xavier Worthy and then stabilizing run game. And then it's like straight to the Super Bowl again.
Yep. Yeah. So you could even see some more like manufactured stuff in the spot to raise his floor a bit.
Yeah. But like, I mean, I'm actually thinking deep ball.
Yeah.
Because we haven't seen too much of that. So I think Davis might be getting excited.
I bet. Any other thoughts on the rest of this offense? Obviously, we still have like the Kareem Hunt led backfield. Kelsey continues to like produce a little bit, but doesn't really show a ceiling here. Anything else outside of Rice?
Not in particular. It's kind of just that part because like Kelsey's actually been having a very solid year, and Rice has been like fully integrated now.
Yeah. Another spot you mentioned liking is the running game here for the Panthers, specifically Rico. What are you seeing here?
It's very similar logic to the Etienne into the Chargers. Mm-hmm. That's actually my only other bet. It's Carolina side. Their run blocking is actually very good, and ATL's run defense is like pretty bad. I think Carolina's like yards before contact might be the highest. Also, Penix is struggling immensely at the moment. He has, I wouldn't even say he's been like outperforming Bryce Young. And we just got the London Q tag. I don't know if that was there going in. But basically, I think they can hold the ball a long time in Carolina.
And so for not that you would lock button the defense with the running back, but as a big part of the thesis, like when these guys are hitting their high end outcomes, it's because they're controlling the game and the defense is performing well.
When it's a guy like Hubbard who can get 30 carries, yes.
Or Rico.
Or yeah, sorry, Dowdle. But like, I mean, I don't have it like as a lock button. I just have it more as a boost where like if I had 5% Panthers in my pool, it might be like 20% if it's Dowdle.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, kind of a gross game otherwise. I'm sure London will get played some. I think people are pretty down on Bijan just losing all those goal line carries to Algier right now.
Right. I mean, he's going to be really low owned, actually. That's like another – that one's rather sneaky. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's like 8%, something like that.
Yeah, because you got to think the way the chalk people are wanting to get to some of the values at running back. It seems like maybe him and Josh Jacobs could get kind of squeezed in that range.
Yeah. I mean, you can get to Jacobs, right? Because like he's not prohibitive from the salary. standpoint, or not as much so, and also like they're just like a favorite, like a 7-point favorite. Like
Yeah.
I would take Josh Jacobs easily being higher than Bijan.
Yeah, that's true. 7,800 versus 8,300, and then the bigger home favorite, and really not as much of a threat of getting vultured there.
I mean, it's like the other side of what I think is going to happen with Hubbard. But you would never take Hubbard and Bijan in the same team in this environment.
Right. And sorry, you mean Rico, right? Just confirm.
Yeah. I keep saying Hubbard. Yeah, Dowdle.
You were just like Dave Canales a couple of weeks ago. He's like, I can't decide which one to do here. All right, I'm going to run the Sims here. We can start to comb through some lineups, see what the Sims are liking here. I was having to adjust some of the market shares there, so we might get some funky plays popping up, but this should get us a good feel for what the Sims are liking here early on Friday. Are you doing most of your building? Is it after inactives on Sunday? How much early kind of tinkering and building do you do?
After inactive Sunday, I'm like well into it. Most of it is like Sunday morning, like 9-10 a.m.
Yeah. And then just hoping a big surprise doesn't blow up everything you've already done. Yeah.
So we're floating Aaron Rodgers. That's interesting.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers here. The top 3 lineups seeing 1 to Warren and Metcalf, 1 to Metcalf, Warren, and Freiermuth, and then 1 to Calvin Austin and Metcalf. So yeah, it's liking the Steelers stuff here.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't.
Flacco. Yeah.
You have no issue with that. That the game just like it really is the game that leads to like these levels of correlation much more so than any other one, aside from maybe like the Cardinals 49ers. So and when it's that standout, I'm not surprised the sim is going to be like, well, this is the only one that you can correlate with value.
Yeah. And the 4th lineup is a Flacco premium double to Higgins and Jamar Chase with the Jalen Warren bring back. That one, makes a lot.
That looks good to me.
There. Yeah. The 4th one, we haven't really talked about Tennessee at all. Davis Mills to Nico skinny stack. What do you think about that?
That's fine. I mean, last week it would have went crazy, even with going to like Dalton Schultz. Yeah, that was really sneaky last week. I'm not sure I buy in doing QB receiver defense on the same.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, this one does have the Texans defense included. One thing I am noticing across a lot of these lineups, and there are a couple Josh Allen, I can read those in a second, but you are seeing one Bills pass catcher on a lot of these. Shakir, Coleman, there's a Joshua Palmer that shows up. So it is liking the value on the Bills passing game here.
Yeah. That's interesting that they would show up as one-offs, especially like a Coleman. But like Shakir one-off at least makes sense because he can rack up the receptions.
I take it you would be more inclined to only use those guys as part of Allen stacks.
Shakir, you could definitely use one-off.
Okay.
Just because he can just get 100 yards, nine catches, stuff like that. Coleman is a little more like higher ADOT and touchdown dependent, so he's going to be more correlated with Allen.
Gotcha. That makes sense. There is, I know you said min or max 2 with Allen. There's a pretty intriguing triple here with Palmer, Shakir, Coleman. It gets in Jacobs, your guy Rico, Njoku at tight end, Jamar Chase in Steelers defense.
Yeah, if it's getting to the point where we can support 3 receivers, you might want to consider taking the Bucks piece.
And just really just going.
But like I don't know because we don't really know about the Palmer route share. Because in a lot of games, like even like Shakir and Coleman aren't running 90% routes. So like Palmer could come at the expense of Coleman as far as like a 80, like it's like kind of marginal where it's like 80, 50, 90, 30, but like I think those guys matter a little bit as far as play time.
Yeah. Yeah, that does make a good amount of sense too. If you don't want to have that stuff cannibalizing each other. And Khalil Shakur's been dealing with the ankle injury. I think he's officially questionable too. So that's also an interesting angle too. If you just play the two cheaper ones and you fade Shakir.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Other quarterbacks popping in the top 10 here. We do get a McCarthy. This one's interesting because it has no Jefferson. I know you've, in just previous weeks, really liked Addison. Do you like his ceiling in this game?
With McCarthy, you can't really go wrong going Addison because he can 30 ball with 2 touchdowns and like on 5 catches, which is a massive boost to McCarthy.
Yep. You are seeing some of your Etienne in here. Here's one opposite the Justin Herbert stuff. So it's Herbert, Ladd, Gadsden with a Travis Etienne bring back. Would you play Etienne that way, or would it only be in kind of like Chargers failure scripts?
Yeah, I wouldn't, because most of my Etienne reasoning is because they can sort of keep the ball a little bit, and Herbert's O-line is in shambles. But I mean, I usually do that where it's like, if it's like a traditional running back, I don't like to take the opposing quarterback.
Gotcha. And then like a spot like this Flacco Warren though would be one where you're more open.
That would be entirely different because he has more receiving equity. Does Warren.
And then I assume the popular one, and you don't see it popping in the Sims, like you're going to see so much Brissett, McBride, CMC bring back stuff.
Yes. Yeah, because playing Brissett gives you access to CMC, and playing Brissett a lot of times also involves Dortch Wilson, which makes CMC very easy to get to.
Yep. Yeah, so that's one to look out for. I mean, that's the build that JM.
So that third team is actually rather good from that perspective, where you get the unowned one-off Bijan, but then you're still double stacking Rodgers, and then you're having like a bit of a shootout script in the Arizona game.
Yeah, I'll read this full one off. It is interesting. It's Rodgers, Austin, Metcalf, no Pitts or no Bengals, but then it has CMC, Bijan, Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, Mark Andrews, Texans. So basically getting into 2 games and then sidestepping the Brissett chalk and hoping that the Pittsburgh rolls. I like the story that one tells.
Yeah, I don't know if that's intentional from the Sims, but those teams are like pretty thoughtfully made when you basically have 2 stacks.
Yes. Yep. And then, like you said, we see Bijan showing up in 3 of these top 5. If he gets squeezed like this, the EV on this probably even goes up from there relative to his ownership. Let's see if we can find some of your other ones here. Let's see what our top worthy lineup is here. Not seeing him. Okay, here's one finally with Mahomes. I guess that is a good question. Would you play Worthy as a one-off or only in conjunction with Mahomes?
I would play him as a one-off. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and
he
just
gets buried sometimes too. Yeah, it's like you would kind of prefer to get him with Mahomes, but like the way they use him a lot of the time is not like that Deshaun Jackson role. It really is just like short stuff, like, and a lot of it was when Rice was gone. So you would think that the ideal role is like a real like deep threat guy with Rice being back. So we just have to see. Like we haven't had that many games of like all the guys being together.
Yeah. If you are playing Mahomes to Worthy, would that be a skinny stack, or would you toss it?
That could definitely be a skinny stack because I don't think people are taking Worthy.
Yeah. Yeah, the lineup, the first Mahomes one with Worthy that you can find is pretty far down here, and it does include Rice, but I kind of like your angle of like Worthy benefiting a little bit at Rice's expense with target volume.
Yeah. I mean, it's an assumption, but at least the coaching has proven to be pretty sharp over time.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. The other one you were mentioning was we can see if there's any love teams and what those look like here. Top love team has a double to Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. I didn't check the inputs here. I'm guessing. What are we? No.
We have everyone in there.
Okay,
Yeah.
Matt. So that's interesting that it is you are seeing one pop up here, even with Matthew Golden in. You're still seeing a pretty solid Romeo.
It's just that they're also liable to give more snaps to like number 4, number 5 guys than most teams would, and so there's like that added downside where like we're getting Malik Heath and like Savion.
Yeah. This is a nice lineup. So it's the Love double. It has Jalen Warren, James Cook, Greg Dortch is the value, George Kittle there opposite, Puka Nacua in the flex. Steelers defense.
Yeah, I do like that.
One guy we didn't mention at all who pops up in the second Love lineup. Any thoughts on Tyrone Tracy with Winston?
I'm not actually sure. I would actually want to look at his usage as far as targeting the running back. So I couldn't tell you. I imagine it's like the same thought process where if it's just not Dart, all the guys benefit a little bit, and that would extend to Tracy, especially at like the goal line carries. But it could be Singletary taking on that role anyway. Yeah.
We can look at one more here. We can look at some Rico Panthers defense. Here's another Rodgers, Warren, Jamar Chase bring back lineup. Get the Rico Carolina Panthers, Shakir, Nico Collins, and Theo Johnson.
Yeah, we probably want to pit Steelers tight end instead of Theo Johnson.
Yeah.
Other than that, yeah, I'm pretty high on Panthers and Dowdle.
Do you have any thoughts on roster construction this week? As you scan through the sims here, it looks like a ton of 2 tight end lineups. Do you think something's going to be used so much that you would go out of your way to be on a different construction?
Not necessarily. 2 tight end tends to mean that like we're a little bit value hungry, because like those guys at the bottom of tight end tend to like be your higher relative values. And we see that because I'm pretty sure someone like Michael Wilson, because he's like the only viable cheap guy at the moment, like under 4K, is going to come higher than a lot of people expect.
Yeah, and it's like anytime you look at these top lineups and the flex doesn't have a second tight end, it's because you have 2 value wide receivers. Like, there's the CMC here, and then you have like Olamide and Shakir and 2 pay down running backs. Like it is hard to find value on this slate.
Yeah, and that also usually means the expensive defenses aren't going to get played. It's going to be like although like Texans are popping in these, so maybe I'm wrong on that. But I guess I would assume Texans don't be as played as many would project.
Yeah. Do you have any favorites if people are thinking of getting unique with a higher priced defense? Obviously, Texans.
Ravens is going to be very overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
If people get onto Giants more, I would go Packers. But like I think Packers people might play.
Yeah. 36.
Honestly, Niners is like very anti-correlated to things that people want. So it'd be like Niners.
Yeah. Niners defense. If you get a Brissett meltdown game, that would be a double whammy on that chalk.
Yeah.
All right, man. Good stuff as always. Plenty to think about, ideas for building. Obviously, you guys need to check out Run the Sims. If you guys missed it, new promo right now. It's not just 10% off anymore with promo code Pete. You can get 50% off your first payment. So if you really want to take advantage of that, you could do the annual sub and get 50% off for a year. You can also do the other smaller packages as well. But same promo code Pete. All of the stuff we've been messing with here. Messing with the ownership, the market shares, all of that kind of customizing. That is all at your fingertips with Run the Sims. And then you can rerun the Sims there and see what is popping based on some of your input tweaks and assumptions. Anything else here, Yuda, before we get out of here?
Nope, that's it.
All right, guys, good luck in week 11. I'm going to hop over right now and do the off and on the clock underdog slate breakdown with the Badge Bros. If you want to join us for that, you should be redirected. Otherwise, I have 2 other shows this weekend. Saturday night, I have DFS After Dark. I'm going to have Chris G on. You guys know him from the Deposit Kingdom community, qualified for the Dog Bowl. We'll be talking some DFS and underdog. And then Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, the Cram. That's where we get our finger on the pulse of all the overnight steam, news, ownership, looking at the Sims and refreshing all of that stuff before lock, as well as reactions to inactives. Thanks again for everybody who hung out in the chat today. For JM, for Yuda, I'm Pete. We'll see you guys in a sec over on Off and on the Clock.